All right, welcome back to the channel. Errol Spence Jr. mocks Terence Crawford rivalry as these fans are going at each other over what is most definitely, and I don't care what anybody says, most definitely the biggest fight in boxing that must take place. I've done the math. It's got to happen. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, yeah, for several years now, at least 2 years now, almost 3, I've been talking about Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford regularly on this channel because that is the best fight in boxing. I don't care what anybody says. That is the one right there that can most definitely, when it takes place, shift boxing from the time where it was so focused on Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao on to the next generation of superstars that we see on a regular basis in the sport of boxing. We see it consistently, whether it is a Jack Johnson, a Jack Dempsey, a Joe Louis, a Muhammad Ali, a Sugar Ray Leonard, a Floyd Mayweather, Mike. Out it goes. You continually see these things because there's points and times when these battles between two equally matched fighters become so important to everybody in boxing that it just totally eclipses everything else. It eclipses the sun. That is what this fight is with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. I promise you, man. I promise you. Now, when I got up this morning, as I took a couple days off running around the country trying to, trying to relax. Very difficult for me to do these days, but I was driving around relaxing. And then I look at Twitter. I see what Errol Spence Jr. says about it, and I'm like, this guy is really starting to get it, man. Because by him promoting it like that and promoting the beef between the two fans, it grows the fight. Errol is most definitely, in my opinion, the favorite to win that fight from a boxing aspect because of the way that he fights. But more important than how he wins the fight is what happens with Errol or Terence, because I could be wrong. Terence could win it. What would happen, right, if that fight happens, and what happens for the winner of that fight? When I look at the numbers of it and just analyze it and think to myself, how many people would be willing to pay for this, right? And I'm thinking that this is like a $1.5 million to $2 million pay-per-view. I know that may not make sense to normal people, but I think I think what you have here is a case of like an alchemical process, right? Where you take two things that you may think like this is worth one and this is worth one. You think you put those two together and you put them together and you get two, but you don't. There's a multiplier on it. You got a 1 here, you got 1 here, you got 1 here. You put them together, you got 11. You know what I'm saying? Not 2. You got 11. It just expands because of the interest in that core fan base, which is Black American fight fans. There are over 50 million Black people in the United States. Of those 50 million, 25 million consider themselves to be avid sports fans. Of the 25 million, half of those are boxing fans, which is 12. And half of that consider themselves to be avid boxing fans, which is like 6 million. 6 million avid boxing fans in the United States will watch Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. Maybe not, they can't afford it, where everybody's going to be able to pay the full $75, or they'll probably charge $100 for this. And the tickets, unfortunately, the ticket prices are going to be very, very high. Something like $3,000 a ticket just to come in there to a nosebleed seat. I mean, can you imagine the money that this fight is going to generate? Think about it. Errol Spence Jr., biggest thing that there is in the state of Texas, which, by the way, is the biggest thing that there is in the sport of boxing right now. The sport of boxing is centered in the state of Texas because nobody else on this planet has the ability to hold the type of fights with the type of crowds in the environment that you have in Dallas and that you have in Texas. You literally have a fiefdom. You have San Antonio where you can make fights. I just came from Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi, I was at a hotel called the Omni Hotel in Corpus Christi, looking right over my balcony, right? Straight into another center. I can't remember, it was the America Center, America Trade Center, something like that. But it was clear, it was a stadium right there in Corpus Christi. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, I could just walk down these stairs, jump in a car, call a car. They would bring me right over to this place. I walk in, I sit down next to the ring, and I see the greatest fighters that there are in the world fighting right there in Corpus Christi, Texas. Why? Because Corpus Christi has so much money. So much money. There are guys that live in Corpus that go to Corpus Christi and do business in Corpus Christi, Texas, that are richer than anybody in Dallas, anybody in Houston, anybody. It's just so small, nobody knows. But their ability to pay ridiculous ticket prices, all you need with the crowd in Corpus Christi, Texas is what? You get 10,000 people there, right? Say you get 20,000 people there, but you're charging $3,000 a ticket. You can get that in Corpus Christi, Texas. You can't get that in the Philippines. You can't, I believe. Now, they've not done it yet, but with this entertainment being on such a premium, right, where they're like high rollers just want to get out of the house, right? I mean, wouldn't consider myself, I'm not a gambler, you know what I mean? But shoot, I would pay good money just to get out of my house, at this point in time. I wound up, I think this year I spent like $5,000-$6,000 on boxing tickets, just on tickets just to be able to get out of my house. The idea that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence could be fighting each other in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I can get a ringside seat, maybe if like Al Heyman cuts me a deal for like $2,500, man, I'm telling you, it would be absolutely huge. I can't wait for that fight to happen. What needs to happen, though, is that Terence Crawford does have to fight Sean Porter because that is what makes it possible. Everything is set for this fight to be a $200 million fight. Everything. It could be or not even a $200 million fight. It might be bigger than Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, the first one, right? It just takes Terence Crawford beating Sean Porter or Ugas. If he fights Ugas and he combines those two belts, it's a wrap. Because now Manny Pacquiao's not even in the picture anymore. We can almost get right to it. Errol Spence Jr. versus whoever he's going to fight next, right? Terence Crawford versus Ugas for the WBA belt. And then you have a unification, and I'm pitching it hard for Corpus Christi, Texas, for an undisputed championship at welterweight at ridiculous ticket prices with all of the celebrities that would come to Atlanta would come to Corpus Christi. Why wouldn't they come to Corpus Christi? If you can get all those people there in Atlanta and you can't really sell any tickets and do any of that now. Have you ever seen like the water that they have right off of the lake? I'm telling you, it should happen. It can happen. And I do believe that it's going to happen soon. Now, another thing that might be interesting though, and this is just a little bit of a rumor that I heard. I don't put a lot in it, but I heard that there might be somebody willing to make a managerial offer to Terence Crawford that is significant, that would put all rest to any type of problems he has with getting out of his Top Rank contract, right? Put any of that stuff to rest because he is somebody that can get sponsorships. And I know that there are some really major organizations that are looking to begin to sponsor fighters. So not only do you have the ticket sales, right? Not only do you have the pay-per-view sales at a premium, but you also have what I just described. That's huge money. And I hope these young men are smart enough to go get it. I'll be waiting for them because I want to see great fights. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.